Good evening once again, and this is Gamal Abdel Nasser of the Economics Department of the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration. It is my privilege to continue the series of lectures that I started, and today we're looking at the principles of economics. Today we're looking at the principles of economics. What I have observed in Africa is most of the time Africans like to consult pastors, soothsayers, and then malams to help them make decisions about businesses, about choices. And we need not see these spiritualists to help us make these decisions. Economic theory gives us what's it called the tools to be able to make these decisions on our own without having to rely on pastors and soothsayers. And when you watch the news, this Osofo has said this and this pastor has said that, and there are a lot of things about decisions. I know managers who see prophets to help them to make decisions regarding who to hire, regarding what projects to start, and all those kinds of things, and what proposal to choose. We don't need to do all these kinds of things. In fact, the principles of economics under the cost benefit analysis gives us all the tools we need to be able to make decisions on our own. So in today's lecture, we are going to be looking at the principles of economics, and we are going to start with the first principle, which is the principle of choice. The first principle, which is the principle of choice. Basically, economics is a science of choices. It's a science of decision making, and the decision making science is all about helping us to make choices. So it's a discipline about decision making and choices. So why are you preferring option A to option B? If you have three different levels of option, why would you prefer option A to option B? And we are faced with choices at different levels of life. Even in our personal lives, we are faced with personal choices. At the national level, we are faced with choices. At the national level, international level, we are faced with choices. So when the choices are related to personal aspects of life, and then those things will fall under the purview of microeconomics. But when those choices are related to the nation or to the country, those aspects were associated with macro. So macroeconomics comes together to create the macro aspects of economics. So in this case, in the first principle, we are interested in looking at choices, why we decide to make certain choices, why we decide to settle for option A and not option B. So typically, the principle of choice is related to the principle of scarcity. And so if we have three different options, we cannot take all the three different options because we are limited by resources. Because of the principle of scarcity, we are forced to settle on one choice. So we are forced to prioritize based on the resources that we have, and that is the first principle of economics. We need to be able to reprioritize because we have unlimited needs, we have unlimited wants, but the resources are very scarce. So what we need to do is to be able to match our resources with our needs, and the principle of choice helps us to prioritize and to make specific choices related to business and related to other aspects of our well-being. So that's the first principle of choice. That's the first principle. Okay. Now the second principle is the principle of cost-benefit analysis. So cost-benefit analysis is the second principle we are going to look at, because right after looking at choices, the next thing we need to do is to look at the cost-benefit analysis. So if we are open to three different choices, if we are open to three different choices, we need to settle on one. And how do you settle on one? What are the fundamental things guiding the decisions that we make? And those things are based on cost benefit analysis. So typically we are doing cost benefit analysis. And what cost benefit analysis does is we will to just juxtapose the costs and the benefits. So we look at the cost versus the benefits. We weigh the advantages with the disadvantages. Okay, so if the marginal benefits, if the benefits outweigh the marginal cost, then we tend to settle for those options that accrue higher marginal benefits and little cost. So this is how the decision process is made. So the next time you are faced with a problem of choice as a manager, as a business owner, as a parent, instead of seeing a pastor, you can do cost benefit analysis. And the cost benefit analysis is just a process of trying to iterate the costs associated with the decision and also the benefits associated with the decision. And when the benefits outweigh the cost, then you settle for the option that gives the greater benefit and the one that gives little cost. So this is what you do. Now, basically, cost is associated with just cost, the cost of making those kinds of decisions. But when we talk about benefits, we're looking at satisfaction. In economics, we're looking at satisfaction. Satisfaction is basically utility, that is the happiness that individuals derive from making certain decisions. So the decisions we make are based on the perceived benefits or satisfaction that it would bring us. And this brings us to the concept of marginal benefits, marginal analysis. Okay, it brings us to the third principle, which is the third principle of marginal analysis. The third principle is the principle of marginal analysis. So in marginal analysis, we look at the advantages associated with uh, 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 per unit benefit. We look at the advantages associated on per unit basis. So for example, if you are planning to utilize a resource, so instead of looking at the whole thing in general, you can look at the benefits that you get for every little unit that you use, every extra unit that you use. So for example, if you have 3 hours, if you have 3 hours to study before you go to bed, and you're actually wondering what to use the 3 hours to do, you could do a marginal analysis and then say, okay, for every hour, this is how I would use my time. If you decide to use the first hour to watch movies or to be on social media, that is what you get. Or you can decide that the second, what's it called, hour, be used for something else. So with marginal benefit analysis, with marginal analysis, we are looking at the extra benefits that we get from using, what's it called, benefits at the edges. Okay, so this is what that does. Now with the marginal cost, we are looking at the cost, the additional cost that we get from using one or two things. And so economic theory argues that for us to make decisions, we should settle for where the marginal benefits are greater than the marginal cost. Now sometimes marginal benefits could be zero. That is, you can weigh marginal cost with marginal benefits and realize that, look, the two are the same. Okay, so the marginal benefit is not greater than the marginal cost, and it is the same. So marginal benefit minus marginal cost gives you zero. So when you find yourself in this situation, and that is where most of the decisions that we are forced to make will leave us, you're not able to clearly see what the disadvantage is. Okay, so in that case, you have marginal benefit being equal to marginal cost, so it being zero. So under this circumstance, we tend to choose the option that gives us, what's it called? We tend to choose the option as to whether marginal benefit or marginal. We tend to choose the option based on the exogenous factors that we get from the environment, and that takes us to the next principle, the fourth principle, which is the principle of incentives. We look at the principle of incentives. So we're saying that when marginal cost is equal to marginal benefit, where our decisions are influenced by exogenous factors. Exogenous factors are the factors that come from outside our own understanding, that come to push us towards marginal benefits or marginal costs, that will either force us to accept that, to either to make the decision or to reject the decision. So that takes us to the next principle, which is the principle of incentives. Now with the principle of incentives, we tend to lean towards marginal benefits. So for example, if you want to make a decision regarding which school to choose, whether to come to GIMPA or to come to University of Ghana, and then someone gave you a very positive review of the advantages associated with getting educated in GIMPA, it might push you to come to GIMPA. So in that case, marginal benefits for GIMPA would go up and marginal cost for University of Ghana would increase. So that is the idea of incentives. So when the information that you get will push you more towards marginal benefits, that is the incentive theory. So the incentives will make you choose the one that gives you higher marginal benefits. There could also be a disincentive. Okay, for example, if you want to come to GIMPA and then you get a new information that tends to discourage your coming to GIMPA, that becomes a principle of disincentive. So because of that, it will increase your marginal cost, making your decision to come to GIMPA fail, and so you might not go for that. So we are saying that when marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost, we are tempted to be influenced by exogenous factors, and this is where analysis come into play. So here in Africa and in Ghana, this is where people go and then consult malams, people go and consult pastors, people go and consult soothsayers to give them the exogenous kinds of influences. But these are not facts. All right, so this is the fourth principle. And so we make decisions also based on the incentives that we would get from those decisions. Okay. Now the the fifth principle, and that's going to be the final principle for today, as we are going to look at the principle of interactions. The principle of interaction. So basically, choices interact in the marketplace. Choices interact. So your choices may interact in my choices, and when the choices interact, it creates chaos in society. So it creates chaos in society, disagreements and so on, and the problems are generated because different people have different choices. So the principle of interaction looks at the principle of markets. So markets become an institution for settling the problems or the chaos in society. So markets are institutions that help us to arrive at agreements, okay, agreements as to which choices to make. So a market is basically an institution where group of buyers interact with group of sellers, demanders interact with suppliers, and where they interact is equilibrium. Okay, so if they come to an agreement that this is what I want to do, or this is the price for which the product should be taken, then that is where that is the market clearing price, and this is where the agreement occurs. So this is what markets do. So markets helps to address the problems of chaos through markets, through demand and supply. We are able to determine the price for which we will take a product and so on. So that helps to settle it. And then this is what it looks like. So in the principle of markets, in the principle of interaction of choices, apart from reaching an equilibrium price for which the good must for which the good must be sold, where buyers agree with what's it called suppliers. Another important thing is to be able to reach efficiency. So it is not just enough for the buyer to say, well, I agree to sell it for this or this product. The two parties involved must be happy with the deal. So, for example, if one party is not happy with the deal, it is not efficient. Okay, they may reach an equilibrium, but it's not efficient. That is the problem we have sometimes when you force a person to sell the thing at a certain product at a certain price that he or she is not willing to sell, then it comes to inefficiency. But the market theory actually teaches that we reach efficiency. That is when two individuals, that is the buyers and the sellers, are happy that they have reached an agreement, and this is where efficiency comes into play. So these are the five major principles of economics. I will be looking at the other principles in our next video, and this is where we leave it. Thank you very much for your time, and then in the next video I'll give you more detailed elaborations of the different fundamentals of economics. Thank you very much for your time. My name again is Gamal Abdul Nasser, Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration. Thank you.